What is going on, guys, and welcome back to the channel. Something a little bit different for you all. We're going to take a break from the Project Ascension, Diablo content, all that stuff. We're going to do some Path of Exile content. I know with the Sentinel League coming out, I want to share at least what my league start is for the league coming up. Now, I don't normally make Path of Exile content, but it is a game that I've been playing on and off since like beta. And if anyone knows me, I've been playing it for a long time. So this is at least my completed version of the league start character that I'm going to do. I've done some practicing on it, so I know that it works up until about level 60 very smoothly before you get any of this gear. And honestly, the gear that I've kind of crafted this build around, not super insane, maybe 20-30 exalted, depending on prices of certain gems and certain pieces of gear, but you could easily get this within week 2, maybe week 3, even if you're a super casual player like me. Before we jump in, remember that it only takes a few seconds, but subscribing below and leaving a like will get this video out to as many people as possible. Let's dive into this video. All right, what's going on, guys? So we are here in Path of Building Community. This is actually the best way to play the game. Path of Exile is just making builds. Yeah, anyway, the build that we're going to be doing, at least that I'm going to be doing, is a Spork Trapper Saboteur. Now, I have played Saboteurs in the past, very consistent class, and with the popularity of the Exsanguinate and Seismic Trap, I wanted to do it a little different spin on that, and I have done a lot of testing with this character as far as up to about level 60 with just solo self-found garbage gear, and it's actually really powerful. So there's two ways of playing this character, but I am initially going to be going for Spark, but I'll talk about a transition for this character if you're not part of the Spark, playstyle, if you don't really like it. So this character is designed around being level 93, very acceptable. I usually get characters around to level 90, 94, so nothing like level 98, 99, level 100 trees, because I've never personally gotten one myself. Let's start here with the talent tree. So we start here on the shadow, obviously going up. Instead of going through these, we need the talent points, so we're just going to go up here, grab trickery here, grab the 2 life points here, come down, grab the elemental damage, trap damage, and of course saboteur. We head up here for the trap throwing speed and trigger trap effect. We grab some skitter bots, increased mana reservation efficiency because we use, I think, 5 ores in this build. We head down here. I really hate the pathing here for the shadow. It's like very horrible to look at. But anyway, you come down through here, grab this. So this gives maximum energy shield, which we do use because this is a ghost dance build as well. So this gives us more survivability because it gives us 5% spell press and max life plus the maximum energy shield, which we do take advantage of. Head down here through the life, grab the life mastery, 10% maximum life, really good there. Grab this jewel node and then head up here. For this trap mastery we grab, it can place 5 additional traps at a time. This is a non-crit build, so we're not getting any kind of crit nodes. This is just pure spark damage. Head down here, grab this node just for another jewel node. We'll go over the jewels here in just a minute. Heading down here, obviously grab the spell suppress here, and then I like the debilitate myself because it's pretty easy to get 100% spell suppress. Normally I would get this just for the extra 10%, but it's fairly easy to get spell suppression capped, and I think getting the debilitate is really good because they deal 10% less damage when you debilitate them. So the biggest thing about this build is that it is an actual fork build, and the reason I wanted to use that is because of these 2 nodes here. Projectiles have a 25% and 50% chance for an additional projectile while forking. So what that's going to mean is that every time one of your sparks goes out, not necessarily the initial cast, but each spark within that has a chance, a 75% chance, to trigger another projectile to spawn after you've hit them. So you're essentially creating 1.75 times the amount of sparks per cast. Really super powerful. The reason I decided to go with that is because most of the new Uber bosses, like the new ones that just came out last league, are all within fairly circular arenas. And if anyone has played Spark before with super high cast speed and really high projectile speed, knows that circular arenas make sparks do an incredible amount of damage. So we look to take advantage of that as much as we can. This one also grabs Wind Dancer for a little bit more survivability. Trap Mastery, chance to throw 4 additional traps. I find this to be very powerful. Evasion Mastery, grabbing Grace has increased mana reservation here. Of course, mana reservation there. Another jewel there. Head down through here. This one, these nodes are really underrated. I've never actually used these myself, but it's super powerful. So in these 3 nodes, we get 16% chance to spell suppress, plus, let's see, 10, 30, 12, 24, so 54% increased evasion and plus 100 flat evasion. Super, super powerful for 3 nodes. Head down here, grab the life and flash just for a little bit more. I'm grabbing Mage Vein for a free 9% spell suppression chance because I already have like roughly 40,000 evasion with the gear on that I've kind of theory crafted that's attainable. The other big thing is that I want to design this around skill duration because we do use sparks and a couple other things that increase duration. So what we're trying to do really is just generate as many sparks as we can while forking, creating more and more projectiles, a decent amount of projectile speed, not crazy amounts. But my biggest thing is I wanted these sparks to last for a really long time. Reason being is because it gives it more chances to actually hit the enemy, and it increases your real-time DPS by also increasing your real-time survivability because you don't have to cast as many. There's going to be more sparks on the screen for longer, allowing you to run around easier. Went down here specifically, I grabbed these two versus these because I needed the strength nodes here. You can see I grabbed the strength node here just for that. So you have to come down here and grab that for another jewel socket, grab this entire life wheel. Grabbed this, even though we don't use the physical damage, we do need the strength. Heading up here, grabbing the last potency of will, and of course, grabbing the last jewel socket here. Let's go over the defense of this character, because I think this is actually probably going to be one of my most consistent tanky characters that I've played in a while, outside of playing like an actual tank build, like a Jug or something. Saboteur, obviously very, very good. Pyromaniac gives you immunity to shock and ignite, super, super good. And then, of course, we use... we're going to get Piranha, the challenger, so we can't be frozen. So we're immune to ignite, shock, and frozen. Super powerful there. And we get 10% life regeneration when we trigger traps. Super, super powerful though as well. Born in the Shadows, you can't be blinded. You take reduced damage from blinded enemies. And even though the enemies have to be nearby for this to happen, you can take advantage of that because you're going to be throwing traps and moving around while your sparks are bouncing off the walls. You can kind of stay near the enemies, keep them blinded, which makes them deal reduced damage. Of course, Perfect Crimes, also very good. Reduced cost, you can gain up to 10% for each trap. I have 24, so this is basically 240% increased damage, and that increases all global damage, not just the trap. And then Chain Reaction, even though we're not using cooldown recovery for the traps, like using cooldown traps themselves, just the fact that the traps trigger when nearby traps also trigger. Super, super good. And you can notice up here that I have tentatively put in Harness the Void as well through the Forbidden Flame and Forbidden Flesh. I've looked at some other ones, but I think Harness the Void specifically for this build, because we're not converting it to chaos damage through different means, having this extra damage is really, really powerful. It's like about 20,000 DPS. So let's go over the skills first, then we'll get into the gear. So here is kind of my setup. Level 20 gems, level 20 quality, not that hard to get. The only thing that you really need to get is the Divergent Spark, because we look to take advantage of the quality where it adds 2 additional projectiles, okay? So the setup is Trap, Spark, Swift Assembly, specifically just for the extra traps to be thrown, and they'll throw around the random target, which is really good for single target damage. Trap and Mind Damage, Awaken Fork, even level 1, and Controlled Destruction. The reason I have Awaken Fork in here, because this is kind of like my project character. This is the one I'm going to be keep going on further and further and further, investing further. And I think the Awaken Fork was like, 2 or 3 exalted during the last league, which isn't that expensive, but you can obviously just get away with normal fork. Very, very powerful regardless. But the reason we're using an Awaken Fork, obviously, is because it gives it an additional fork, so you can fork twice, basically giving you the chance to have 2.75 sparks per cast, if that makes sense, because they're going to fork twice, potentially hitting the target twice and splitting, twice. So you're almost getting 3 sparks per trap thrown. The auras we use are Grace, Summon Skitterbots, Determination, and Enlighten. So level 3 Enlighten, not super expensive. You can get away with not using Enlighten. You'll just have to drop maybe like the Herald of Thunder or Defiance banner. But I tentatively put in level 3 Enlighten just because, again, this is kind of my project character. So you need Anomalous Grace specifically for the Avoid Elemental Ailments. Not that big of a deal. You can get away with default, but it's always really nice. Summon Skitterbots, I use Divergent specifically for the increased effect of non-damaging ailments. So this is going to increase their shock and their chill effect. You can get away with the normal one, but look for a Divergent yourself. Determination, very, very important that you get the divergent one, because you and your allies gain 2% of evasion as extra armor. So if you take this off, you can see my defense go down quite a bit. I gain 12,000 armor alone from that. Super, super good. The other ones we're going to be using, since we're going to be using a one-hander and a shield, is Flame Wall, Increased Duration, and Vol Impurity of Lightning. Very, very important here is because when you pop the Vol Impurity of Lightning, nearby enemies, lightning resistance is ignored. So you basically get the Templar ascendancy, the Inquisitor, I believe. So this really, really ups your single target damage. You're not really going to be popping this during maps, but you can for bosses. Increased duration is just to increase the duration, obviously, of it. And then Flame Wall. So the other one is we want this to last as long as we can. One, because it's going to allow more projectiles to pass through it, gaining the additional damage from passing through it. But it also makes the Flame Wall last longer, and since with Perfect Crime, we get 200%, 240% increased global damage, this actually increased the damage of Flame Wall as well, adding more to your single target as well. Last couple things before we go over the gear. Enduring Cry with Enhanced level 3, not too bad. I didn't want to go up to like level 4, or now the new level 5s, plus increased duration for obvious reasons. The other ones we have is Sniper's Mark, Dash, Herald of Thunder, and Defiance Banner. Very, very powerful. If you can't get a hold of any kind of enlightens, just take off the Defiance banner and you should be able to use everything else. Moving on to the items, we're tentatively using the Cerberus Limb, not the most powerful of weapons, but I do like the additional armor and evasion that we get from it. We get about 5,000 armor. Let's see, we get 3,000 armor and 4,200 evasion roughly. So very, very powerful. I negate about 120 elemental damage. Super good. Supreme Spike Shield, this is just something that I kind of just crafted. I would imagine something like this is probably going to cost close to maybe an Exalted, depending on the price. Nothing extraordinarily expensive here. No influence mobs or anything. Just really solid defenses. Spell Suppress, Evasion, Energy Shield, Max Life, and some block. You're going to look for Spark, fires 3 additional projectiles for your Helm enchant. You can get 2, obviously, but 3. Eventually, you want to try to get that. Just some armor and evasion stuff. Max Life, again, a couple reses. Tinker Skin is just kind of the go-to one that I do. I think it's very consistent. Obviously, you can get much, much better, but this one is just such a good, solid chess piece that covers so much. It gives you a little bit of defense, gives you some utility from the phasing, but also helps recover from your traps triggering, which we also use both sides of it, because we do have some energy shields since we are a Ghost Shroud build as well. The boots, or excuse me, the gloves, Murder Mitts, Evasion, Energy Shield here. Trying to get some Energy Shield with some Max Life and trying to get some Chaos Resistance, obviously. Boots, pretty simple. Spell Suppress, some Chaos Resistance, Max Life, and Movement Speed. Nothing super, super fancy. You can sub these in for its series step. Very, very cheap, usually early on, but we're trying to cap our Chaos Resistance as well. Some rings that I tentatively put in. No damage mods on these at all, just catalyst up to the maximum for resistances, so we're looking to try to cap our resistances through this. So just some Chaos Resistance, Max Life, and a 1 or 2 just normal resistances. Nothing like super, super expensive. No influence mods. I would imagine something specifically like this might cost you an Exalted or so per ring. Not super, super expensive. This build is kind of built off Ashes of the Stars. No surprise there. Super, super strong. We take advantage of the quality of all skill gems, because if you get this up to a perfect 30, it allows the Divergent Spark to not only fire 4 additional projectiles with this current, but all the way up to 5. So super, super strong there. Just a generic leather belt. Something like this, I know it has the catalyst, but something with Tri-Res and Max Life on is going to cost you literally like 10 chaos. Not expensive at all. This is a semi-block build. Looks like we do have 56% chance to block here with the roomies up. Very, very powerful there. We have a Divine Seething Flask of Warding just to remove some curses, and you get the instant removed, and you can use it when you start bleeding as well. Enchant it with that. We have an Experimenter's Quicksilver Flask of the Cheetah. This is kind of like a long goal, but you know, just a Quicksilver make you go fast. Jade, obviously for more evasion, and then you gain the charges when you get hit, and then you can enchant it with use charges when you reach full. The last one we're actually using is an Enduring Mana Flask. You're not going to really get much out of the reduced mana skills, but couldn't really think of anything else better. But the reason we're using this, because we're not using any kind of clarity or anything for a lot of mana regen. You can see my mana regen's only 20, and the mana cost is about 32 per trap, and we're trying to be able to spam that by using the Eternal Mana Flask. I haven't tried this out yet personally, but if the mana is still an issue even with this, I'll probably just sub out the Defiance Banner or something else. So the jewels that I have tentatively put in for this build: max life, mind damage, and projectile speed. I would imagine you could probably get one of these for anywhere from 50 to 100 chaos, depending on how expensive they are. You could get one corrupted, even if it's just max life and mind damage. For corrupted blood cannot be applied on you, but not that big of a deal. The Watcher's Eye, just ignore the last one, the Zealotry. You're looking to try to get block and physical damage reduction with determination. This is kind of another end goal. If you can't really afford this, you can just substitute in for another rare jewel, perfectly fine as well. And the last two big ones are the Harness the Void, Forbidden Flame, and Forbidden Flesh. These ones give you about a 20,000 DPS increase, so very, very powerful there. Again, this is kind of like the week 2, week 3 goal for this character. You could obviously increase this gear by a substantial amount, so not really anything super, super outlandish. I could do a lot more, but I think this is a conservative effort of maybe 2-3 weeks in. I could very easily obtain this gear depending on how much I play. So just to give you guys an idea of kind of where the damage is coming from, I have set it to here to Cyrus, not too bad. I just checked all the things that would likely happen during a fight. So you're going to throw your flame wall down, so boom, that gives you a little bit extra DPS. It already accounts for blinded, but I just checked it anyway. The effect of the shock is coming from your skitter bots. It's up to 21%, very, very strong. Mine's are traps triggered recently just for the life regen. You can see we're at 510 from that. So we use endurance charges, so we do have that for some extra defenses there. And then frenzy charges, just because we trigger them from the talents and also Tinkerskin. So you have 3 frenzy charges, nothing super, super extreme, but we don't use any kind of elemental resistance reduction curses, because we're using Vol Impurity of Lightning as well to get that ignored hits. So just to show you kind of what the Spark looks like. So if you see here, we have duration mod, so it's going to be lasting 2.09 times longer, so it's almost 4.2 seconds per Spark, and we have 15 projectiles. So you get 11 from the Spark, 3 or 2 from the helmet enchant, then you get 1 from the base. So the fork count, this is just obviously saying that it has awakened fork. So if you think about like fork in this way, where if you take the average of 75%, so it fires 15 projectiles. So what you do is you take 15 times that by 0.75. If every projectile hits, you're essentially getting 11 new projectiles per cast. So that's upwards of 27. Then if you double that with awakened fork, obviously this is like the absolute best case scenario if everything goes to plan. You know, this is just showing exactly what we can do. And then if you multiply that by how many traps we have when you preload for the boss, you can have upwards of like close to 1,300 sparks on the screen, obviously if everything goes to plan, and that's not even accounting for the poacher's mark that you're going to be having on the bosses. So anything in a circular arena is going to have just an absolute just cluster of sparks everywhere. It's going to be passing through your flame wall, and you're going to be running around dealing a ton of damage even though you're not like actively casting. Obviously that is quite inflated, and this is probably not a realistic, but I just wanted to give you guys kind of an idea of what the upper level of this build could potentially accomplish. Before I end this video, I do want to kind of go over something that I have thought about transitioning this character into instead of Spark, in case it ends up being better for specifically bossing, and it is Eye of Winter traps. I know there was like this big bug recently with Eye of Winter and Blast Chain Mine and Flame Wall, so we're not exploiting that, but I'm telling you now, Eye of Winter traps with fork is disturbingly powerful. The reason being is because every time one of the little thing kind of goes out and hits, so I have the Eye of Winter pulled up here, so anytime one of the projectiles goes out, what it does is it doesn't affect the eye, but it does affect the secondary projectiles. So the projectiles come out and then can fork, creating more projectiles per hit. So it fires 8 shard projectiles in a spiral when the projectile ends, but it also contains contains more as it's spinning. So it's like it's spitting them out as they're going, and then the final spiral explodes and does a crazy amount of them. This just adds an immense amount of projectiles. We changed the, excuse me about that. We changed the talent tree just slightly in case Eye of Winter ends up being more effective, excuse me, for specifically just like single target bossing, because I do want to do a lot of the uber boss with this character as well. Spark might not be the best, but I'm pretty sure it's going to completely dissolve bosses like really fast. But just in case, we do have a transition into Eye of Winter mines as well. So the setup for that real quick is Eye of Winter, Trap, Awaken Fork, again level 1. You can just use Fork normally, just fine. Trap and mine damage, control destruction, and elemental focus. We're not trying to freeze the boss, we're just trying to do as much damage as we can. And with the trap throwing speed we have with like frenzy charges, you should be able to get all, you know, up to 16, 20 traps preloaded on a boss very easily. If you do feel like you're not being able to get there quick enough, you can change elemental focus out for something like not charge traps, but swift assembly. I don't like anything that reduces the damage. This allows you to throw additional traps or mines, so you can switch that as well. But for the time being, I am just doing elemental focus for the amount of damage we need. So the tree changes up very slightly. Instead of doing more projectile speed, we actually want to do less projectile speed. The reason being is because it says here in the projectile speed, the slower it travels, it basically makes the target be in the eye of the storm more often. So it says skills that fire an eye projectile, secondary shards. It makes so if they're careful positioning by the player, single target may be hit by all projectiles in this last spiral, effectively shotgunning this target. So it isn't a very effective boss killer if you can slow the projectiles down, make them spend more time within that Eye of Winter, and then it explodes, does a tremendous amount of damage. So the things that we do is we actually take away the skill duration here, and actually change that to less projectile speed, still keeping the fork, and then we just come down here, grab another jewel slot, grab a frenzy charge here, because it does give you more evasion as well, plus some damage, and then you just grab the life nodes here. So a very easy transition. I did set this character up to be either Spark or Eye of Winter. Eye of Winter obviously is not as good at map clearing, but it might be better in the long run for bossing. All right, guys, I know that was a lot of information. I'm sorry that it's kind of rambly, but there was a lot to go over. I'm really excited to play this character, and I really do think this character is going to be an absolute just beast of a character. The clear speed is going to be phenomenal. The bossing is just going to be exceptional. This guy is super tanky, super survivable, and I'm just looking forward to play it. If you guys like the video, remember to like and subscribe, all that stuff. You know the drill by now. I'm sure you've heard it a billion times, but I'm going to keep making build diaries for this build to keep you guys updated on how it goes, and I'm really looking forward actually to make this project character a reality, to see how it takes on the end game. You guys enjoy the rest of your night. With that, this video is done. Subscribe below for more content. I will see you in the next one.